So good afternoon to all. So in the last class we have completed the habitat ecology. So in that only we have completed the terrestrial habitat. Next there is a freshwater habitat, means aquatic habitat, freshwater habitat. Today we are going to see this habitat. Okay. So the freshwater ecology. So already you know that ecology andre ಏನು already you know the reciprocal interrelationship between the living and non-living organisms. And the fresh water means ಸಿಹಿ ನೀರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಪಾಂಡ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ ಇಂಥವೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಿರ್ತಾವ ಲೇಕ್ river. So all these are freshwater forms. So the study of freshwater ecosystem or the study of freshwater habitat is called as limnology. So one mark question it is, what is limnology? So study of freshwater habitat. So this you have to remember. Then it is a specialized subcategory of the overall study of organisms and the environment. Means specialized subcategory of the overall study of organisms. So present in the water, and the interaction also taking place in between the water, that is non-living thing, and the living things which are present in the water. So there is an interaction take place in between the living or non-living things. So the ecology we have to study in the water. So that is one of the thing. Then freshwater ecosystems are a subset of Earth's aquatic ecosystem. Already I have told that it is an aquatic ecosystem. So they include, means freshwater ecosystem includes lakes and ponds, rivers, streams and springs and wetlands. So all these are belongs to freshwater ecosystem, isn't it? So next slide. So freshwater habitat can be classified by different factors. So this habitat, freshwater habitat, can be classified by different factors which are involved here in the classification of habitats. Then including temperature, light penetration, transparency and so many. So these are the factors which are very important, or these are the basis for the classification of the freshwater habitats. Okay, so we will see these factors in the later slides. Then freshwater ecosystems can be divided into two types, that is mainly two types. One is lentic ecosystem and another one is the lotic ecosystem. So these we have to know. What is the lentic ecosystem or the lentic habitat? So calm freshwater habitat or standing water. So in the ecosystem chapter also we have discussed, I have told this definition also. Lentic means what, lotic means what, I have told. So here is the time to discuss about the lentic and lotic ecosystems. So lentic habitat means standing water body. Standing water. So there is no flow of water, running water ಇರಲಿ, ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೇ ತಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಂತಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋಂಥ ವಾಟರ್. So it refers to the standing or relatively still water. From the Latin lentus means sluggish. The Latin word, the lentus and birth. Lentus means it is a Latin word. From Latin word it has been taken. The meaning which gives is sluggish. Okay, standing water body. Then the lotic habitat means washed or the running water. ಈಗ ನೋಡಿ ರನ್ನಿಂಗ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಹಂಗೆ ಹರಿತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ಲಿ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಲೋಟಿಕ್. ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಹರಿತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ರೆಫರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಫ್ಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ವಾಟರ್, ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಟೋಲ್ಡ್. ಫ್ರಾಮ್ ದಿ ಲ್ಯಾಟಿನ್ ವರ್ಡ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಲೋಟಸ್. Lotus means to wash. So the lotus is the Latin word that meaning gives, that is to wash ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ. So that is the lotic and lentic water system ecosystems. And the definition you have to remember for 1 marks: lentic ecosystem, lotic ecosystem, that has to remember. Then the lentic habitat we have to see first. So lentic habitat means what? I already had told in the standing water body, means there is no flow of, or there is no running water, only standing water body. Stagnant ಹಂಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆನೇ ನಿಂತಿರ್ತಾವೆ. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಲೇಕ್ಸ್. So if you see our Sharan Bashweshwara lake, so the water is standing, ದೇರ್ ಈಸ್ ನೋ ಫ್ಲೋ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್. ರನ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಕಡೆ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ನಿಂತಲ್ಲೇ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ಏರಿಯಾನಾಗೆ ನಿಂತಿರ್ತಾವೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಲೇಕ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಲೆಂಟಿಕ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ಯಾಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಬಾಡಿ of relatively still fresh water of considerable size localized in a basin, comma, that is surrounded by land. Means this is a one area in which the water is there, fresh water is there, and that cannot run or that cannot flow from one place to another place. So that will be present only in one area, and that is surrounded by the land. So you in the picture you are seeing the lake pictures. So these are the lake, and that is surrounded by the land area. So next is ponds. Ponds are also the freshwater bodies. So the ponds, the body of standing water, either natural or man-made, that is usually smaller than a lake. ಸೊ ಪಾಂಡ್ ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವೇನು ಮನುಷ್ಯರನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀರು ಹಾಕಿ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ನು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಮ್ಯಾನ್ ಮೇಡ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ಮಳೆ ಬಂದರೆ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಪಾಂಡ್ ರೆಡಿ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಪಾಂಡ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ ದಿ ಲೇಕ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ ದಿ ಲೇಕ್ಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ದಿ ಪಾಂಡ್ ಇಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. So in the rainy season we come across these all ponds. In summer season that is very less ponds are going to we are going to see the very less ponds because the loss of water due to the temperature and all. So here you are in the picture you are seeing the pond as one of the freshwater habitat. So next in the lentic habitat only the swamp. So swamp is a wetland that is forested. ಸ್ವ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಅಂದರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಹೆಸರು ಕೇಳಿರಿ, ಸ್ವ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು. ಲೇಕ್ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀರಿ, ಪಾಂಡ್ ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀರಿ, ಬಟ್ ಸ್ವ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀರಿ, ಬಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ಸ್ವ್ಯಾಂಪ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ವ್ಯಾಂಪ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ವೆಟ್ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟೆಡ್. ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಇರ್ತದ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಟರ್ ನಿಂತಿರ್ತವೆ. That is the swamp. So in the picture you are going to see clearly that is there are many plants, means the trees are there, forest area is there, so that is completely covered with the water. So that is the wetland area. Okay, swamp. Next one is in the lentic habitat only bog. So bog is a wetland so that accumulates peat, a deposit of dead plant material, often mosses, and in a majority of cases sphagnum moss. So this is the wetland area, that is a swamp that has the forest area that covers the water. Here there is no forest, but there is a land area, small algae like trees, and means the mosses are there. This area is covered with the water and some mosses, so that is the bog, wetland area. Then coming to the lotic ecosystem, running water body. The water cannot stand in a one place, they are flowing, the water is flowing continuously, so like river and all, so spring and all. So here the first one is a spring. So spring is one of the kind of freshwater habitat, that is especially lotic habitat, where the water flows out of the ground. So ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ವಾಟರ್ ಫ್ಲೋ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಇನ್ ದಿ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್, ಸೊ ವಾಟರ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ಲಿ flowing, that is the flowing, that is a spring. Okay, so in the next one is the river. You are very familiar about this river, so many of you have went to the river. So Bhima river is there, isn't it? Like many rivers are there. So it is a water body, means freshwater body, lotic water body, with the current moving in one general direction. So the water is moving in one direction. So in the picture you are seeing that there is a way, there is a flow of water taking place in one direction. So with current moving, so water with the current moving in a one general direction, so that is the river. Next streams. So streams are also the examples for low-tech ecosystem, freshwater body, a thin body of water which has continuous flow of water, often referred to as a creek or a brook. Creek or brook ಅಂತಲೂ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಒಂದು ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಡಿನೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ, flowing water body, running water body, but there is no so much water is present, but there is no deep area of water. So here only the water flows a thin water body, ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಾಟರ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ, ತೆಳುವಾದ ಒಂದು ವಾಟರ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ. ಸೊ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಡೀಪ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅದು ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಮೇಲೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಓಡಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ರನ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್. So isn't it, I think you know about the what is the standing water body, what is the flowing water body, means lotic ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಲೆಂಟಿಕ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರಿವರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅದಕ್ಕಂತಾರ, ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಂತಾರ, ಸ್ವಾಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಂತಾರ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ನೋ, ದೆನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದಿ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟಾಟ್ ಇಕಾಲಜಿ. Okay. So next is the factors. So in the first slide only we have discussed about the classification is based on the factors. So these factors we have to discuss here in this slide. The first one is the temperature. So temperature is one of the thing, it is the basis for classification of the water body. The first one, temperature. In the temperature, water thermal properties combine to minimize temperature change. So temperature is one of the limiting factor here. So the environmental temperature is different and water temperature will be different. So usually the water temperature is less as compared to the environmental temperature, isn't it? The temperature plays a very important role here. So this water thermal properties, the temperature is one of the property of the water. So this combined to minimize the temperature change. So the variation of the temperature taking place in the environment as well as in the water body. So based on the temperature, the lentic and lotic ecosystems have been classified, and in lotic also and lentic also there are many organisms which are present in the water. So those organisms has to survive, and they can live in the water. The temperature also plays very important role, because the optimum temperature is required for surviving of the organisms. If there is a so much temperature, the raise in the temperature will be affecting on the organisms and they cannot survive. So less temperature is also not good for the organisms, because very cold temperature is also not good. So somewhat the temperature needs the organism. So the temperature play very important role. That should be optimum temperature is required for the survival of the organisms, isn't it? Next, the current. So current direction is a very important limiting factor. So current direction is also one of the important factor. ಅದು ನೀರು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು, ಹೆಂಗೆ ಹರಿಬೇಕು, ಏನು ಒನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನಾಗಿ ಜನರಲಿ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ವಾಟರ್ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಏನಿರ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಲಿಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್. ದೆನ್ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ಲಿ ಡಿಟರ್ಮೈನ್ ದಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ if vital gases, salts and small organisms. So largely determine the distribution of vital gases, salts, and small organisms. So distribution of these is very important. Then another very important limiting factor is the transparency. So transparency, the water is on the transparency. So we can see in the water, means up to some level we can see the organisms or anything which is present in the water. So the water is has the capacity of transparency, but some extent. So if you go in deep, so light cannot penetrate into the water. If you go into the deep, so the sunlight will not penetrate to the up to the level in the deep water body, then we cannot see the objects or the organisms. So some level or some extent we can see. So water has the capacity of transparency. So turbidity, so one of the factor, physical factor of the or physical property of the water, and especially when caused by the clay and slit particles. So it can be measured using an instrument, means the turbidity or transparency can be measured using an instrument called as Sachi disk. So in the figure it is shown that the Sachi disk, how the Sachi disk is. So this is used for the measurement of the that is transparency. Next, concentration of respiratory gases. So this is also another factor. So gases means oxygen and carbon dioxide. So concentration of respiratory, these are called as respiratory gases. So plants, they need carbon dioxide to synthesize the food, and the animals need the oxygen for their survival. So oxygen and carbon dioxide concentration are often limiting in the freshwater ecosystem or the environment. So in the organisms present in the water also need the this oxygen, and the plants need the carbon dioxide. So this is very important. So there is an interaction taking place in between the living or non-living things. So plants need carbon dioxide from the organisms present in the water, and the organisms need oxygen from the plants. So they are interdependent on each other. So that concentration level also very important. So there is more carbon dioxide in the water, then what happens, the free carbon dioxide we can call it as in the water. So if the carbon dioxide content is more, then the organism present in the water will get affected. So they need oxygen also. The oxygen content is important for surviving of the organisms present in the water, and as well as the plants also needs the carbon dioxide from the organism present in the water. So the organisms release the carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is required for the photosynthesis of plants. So they are interdependent. So this concentration level is very important for the organisms, plants as well as animals. So next one is concentration of biogenetic salts. So salts means the nitrates and phosphates seems to be limiting in a freshwater ecosystem. So these are also play very important role, nitrates and phosphates. So these are also be present, and these play very important role. And calcium and other salts are likely to be limiting in soft water lakes and streams. ಸೊ ಇವನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ನು ಏನಿರಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ನಾಗ. ಸೊ ಸಿಹಿ ನೀರು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. ಮರೈನ್ ವಾಟರ್ನಾಗ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಉಪ್ಪು ನೀರು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಲಿಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಲೆವೆಲ್ನಾಗ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಪರ್ಮಿಸಿಬಲ್ ವಿದಿನ್ ದಿ ಪರ್ಮಿಸಿಬಲ್ ಲಿಮಿಟ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ದೆನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಈಸ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಡ್ರಿಂಕ್. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ if the concentration is more, these properties or all the parameters. So if these parameters are above the permissible limit, then the water is not able to drink. So that's why all the parameters should be in the permissible limit, then only the water is suitable for the drinking purpose. Okay. Next, so there is a problem in moving slides. Wait. So next, so major groups of freshwater organisms. So what are the major groups of freshwater organisms? Means there are many organisms in the water. So they have grouped the freshwater organisms. ಏನೇನು ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ? So classified into the groups, major groups of freshwater organisms are classified into. So first one, major niches, ಅಂದರೆ based on their position in the energy level or food chain. means the based on the food chain or the energy level, the first group of organisms have been classified, that is major niches. So in these there are three categories. One is autotrophs, means these are the green plants or the producers. Okay, then next one is phagotrophs. Phagotrophs means macro consumers. Hmm. The phago ಅಂತ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಫಾಗೋಸೈಟೋಸಿಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿರ್ಬೋದು ನೀವು, ಅಂದರೆ engulfing the foreign particles, the process of engulfing the foreign particles. So here consumers are going to be engulfed, so macro consumers ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Then saprotrophs means decomposers or micro consumers. So these are the three categories have been grouped in based on their position in the energy level, so where they occupied the place in the food chain. So ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆಟೋಟ್ರೋಪ್ಸ್, ಫ್ಯಾಗೋಟ್ರೋಪ್ಸ್, ಸ್ಯಾಪೋಟ್ರೋಪ್ಸ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನೋ ದೀಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಡಿಕಂಪೋಸರ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಪಾಂಡ್ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿಡ್. ಓಕೆ, ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಈಸ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ಯಾಟ್, ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ದೇರ್ ಮೋಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಫ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ಹೆಂಗಿರ್ತದೆ, ಮೋಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಹೆಂಗದ, ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ಲೈಕ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಬೆಂಥೋಸ್, so resting or living in the bottom of the sediments. So benthic organisms are the organisms which are present in the bottom of the water or bottom of the freshwater habitat. ಅಂದರೆ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಪೂರ ನೀರಾಗಿರಲ್ಲ, ಅವು ನೀರಾಗ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಟ್ ಪೂರ ಕೆಳಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ನಾಗ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ನು ವಾಟರ್ನಾಗ ಒಳಗೆ ಕೆಸರು ಏನಿರ್ತದೆ, ಮಣ್ಣು ಏನಿರ್ತದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿರ್ತದೆ ತೆಳಗೆ, ಪೂರ ತೆಳಗೆ. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ವಾಟರ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಮ್. ಸೊ ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ bottom of sediments. Okay, so these are called as benthos or benthic organisms. So this is also very important topic for the research. So benthic, study of benthic freshwater body. And means we have to collect the sediment and we have to see what are the benthic organisms present in the water. So next example for these benthos or benthic organisms is clams and the snails. So you have heard the name snail. So snails and clams. Then the second group is periphyton. So what are periphytons? Periphytons are the organisms living on the stems and leaves of rooted plants. So rooted plants antivi. So the plants which are having the roots, under ರೂಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನಂತ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತದ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸು, ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪೆರಿಫೈಟಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಫೈಟೋ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಟು ದಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ರೂಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್, ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಆಲ್ಗೇಸ್ and some of the cyanobacteria. So these are the examples for periphytons. Next, life form of habitat based on their mode of life. Again we have some examples, that is third category, that is plankton. So planktons are the floating organisms whose movements depend upon the current, ಅಂದರೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಅದ್ರ ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್. So we are already in the last class only I had told that water planktons, in that two groups are there, phytoplanktons and zooplanktons. So this study, so it is also very important for the research. So collection, you have to collect the water, surface water, flowing water by the net, zooplankton net or phytoplankton net, and you have to observe under the microscope by keeping a slide, by putting one drop of water, and you can see the organisms, means in the presence of these planktons. Okay, floating organisms whose movements depend upon the current, and these are the microscopic organisms. So then another category is nekton. So these are swimming organisms, means swimming organisms, they are able to navigate at will, means swimming organisms, they can swim and able to navigate at will. Example, fishes. So fishes, all of you have seen the different varieties of fishes, like katla, it is a common, in Gulbarga also it is a very common katla, and there are many fishes, that is rohu, you have seen, that is a labio rohita, you can call it scientific name. Katla is a common. And there are many fishes. Channa, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕಾರ್ಪ್, many carps you have seen. So these are edible fishes. So fishes are swimming organisms. These are called as nectons ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ಟಾನ್. So another group, that is ನ್ಯೂಸ್ಟಾನ್. So the organisms resting or swimming on the surface. So ಇವನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸೇ. So they are resting on the surface of the water or swimming on the surface of the water. So these are called as protozoans and bacteria. So protozoans and bacteria are also the न्यूस्टॉन्स organisms. They are sometimes they may undergo rest or they may swim on the surface of the water. So these are the groups of organisms. Next, the third group is the classification of organisms. Major group of organisms, that is third group is region or subhabitat. So in the lake there are many zones like littoral zone, limnatic zone and prefrontal zone. So these zones are very important in the water. ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವ ಲೆವೆಲ್ನಾಗ ಯಾವ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. and there are many zones in the marine water as well as in the fresh water. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸು ಎಲ್ಲ ಝೋನ್ನಾಗ ಸರ್ವೈವ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. some organisms adapted to the bottom of the water body, or some organisms are present on the attaching the stems or leaves, and some organisms living on the surface of the water. So like that there are zones. Those zones are ಯಾವ ಝೋನ್ದಾಗ ಸುಟೇಬಲ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಆ ಝೋನಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ದೆನ್ so you are 6th semester students. So if you go to the field visit, then like Karwar and all, you can see the marine water, and there is so much so many organisms are there, and you are able to see those organisms. The fishermen are there and they collect the different varieties of fishes, prawns, crabs. So you can come across those all things. In the fresh water also, here also in there are many. Appa Lake is there, and river Bhima river is there. There are many rivers and freshwater habitat also there. If you want to see if you want to study the freshwater, one has to visit the water body, and you can see. Okay, in that is a littoral zone. So it is a shallow water region with light penetration to the bottom. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಲಿಟ್ರಲ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಶಾಲೋ ವಾಟರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶಾಲೋ ವಾಟರ್ ರೀಸನ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವಿತ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಪೆನೆಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಸನ್ಲೈಟ್ ಪೆನೆಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಟು ದಿ ಬಾಟಮ್. ಸೊ ಅಪ್ ಟು ದಿ ಬಾಟಮ್ ತನಕ ಇದು ಲಿಟ್ರಲ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀರಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಟ್ರಲ್ ಝೋನಾಗ ಏನಿರ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಪೆನೆಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಪ್ ಟು ದಿ ಬಾಟಮ್. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಲಿಟ್ರಲ್ ಝೋನ್? ಸೊ 1 marks question it is. You should remember this one. So then limnatic zone, so open water zone to the depth of the effective light penetration which photosynthesis balances respiration. So here open water zone it is to the depth of the effective light penetration which photosynthesis balance respiration. So ಅಲ್ಲಿ photosynthesis ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಲಿಮ್ನಾಟಿಕ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ದೆನ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಒನ್ ಸಿ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೌಂಡಲ್ ಝೋನ್. ಸೊ ಬಾಟಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡೀಪ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಏರಿಯಾ. ಸೊ ಬಾಟಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡೀಪ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಇದು. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಝೋನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಸಿ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ಲಿ ಶೋನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ದರ್ ಆರ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಝೋನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ವಾಟರ್. ನಮಗೆ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಿರ್ತದೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಡಿನೇ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿರ್ತದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಹೋದಂಗೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಆಗ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಹಂಗೆ ಡೀಪ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಇದು. ಸೊ ನೋಡಿರಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಟ್ರಲ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಎದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತೀವಿ ನಾವು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಟ್ ಪೆನಿಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ದೆನ್ ಲಿಮ್ಲೆಟಿಕ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಎದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮತ್ತು ಫುಲ್ಲು ಪ್ರಿಫೌಂಡಲ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಪೂರಾ ಬಾಟಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿರ್ತದೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡಿರಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿರ್ತದೆ ಬೆಂತಿಕ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿರ್ತದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಬೆಂತಿಕ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಪೂರ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತವೆ ಬೆಂತಿಕ್ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತವೆ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ನಾಗ. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಝೋನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಲೇಕ್. ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೊ ಅನದರ್ ಇದರೊಳಗೆ ದೆನ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ಸ್, ಇದು ಲೇಕ್ನಾಗ ಆಯಿತು, ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ನಾಗ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ರ್ಯಾಪಿಡ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಶಾಲೋ ವಾಟರ್ ವೇರ್ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಎನಫ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ರ್ಯಾಪಿಡ್ ಝೋನ್, shallow water body where velocity of current is great enough. Then pool zone, another one. So deeper water, the water is so deep where the velocity of current is reduced. So here the current of the current in water current, velocity of the current is ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಕೋತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಡೀಪ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ಸ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ನ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, and we have seen the what is the freshwater ecosystem, and study of freshwater ecosystem is called as limnology. So whatever the interaction and organism present in the water, that study is called as, totally the freshwater study is called as limnology. Okay, there are two types, lentic and lotic ecosystems. So lotic ಅಂದ್ರೇನು, ಲೆಂಟಿಕ್ ಅಂದ್ರೇನು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಹೇಳೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಮೇಜರ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸು ಎಷ್ಟು ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಯಾರ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಾಡಿನಾಗ ಅಂಥೇಳಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್, ಲಿಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸೀನ್. ಸೊ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ದಿಸ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ 1 mark ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅಪಿಯರ್ಡ್, ಸಮ್ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ 5 mark ಕ್ವಶನ್. ಸೊ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ಯಾಟ್ ಅಂತ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ರೈಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ನೋಟ್ ಆನ್ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ಯಾಟ್ ಅಂಥೇಳಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಬರ್ಬೋದು. ಆರ್ 1 mark ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಲಿಮ್ನಾಲಜಿ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ಲಿಟ್ರಲ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ಲಿಮ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಝೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೋರಿ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ದೇರ್ ಈಸ್ ಎನಿ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಮೀ, ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ we'll end up this session. Is there any questions? No? Okay. Shall we end up this session? Okay, fine. Thank you for listening.